He was not just an actor, he was a legend. Clint Eastwood walked into Hollywood like a silent storm. With his cold eyes and strong stare, he became a symbol of power and mystery. But behind that calm face, he carried something many never saw: deep grudges. Clint was not the kind of man to forget betrayal. He remembered every insult, every disrespect, and every fake smile. Some actors crossed him once, and that was enough. He did not just dislike them, he truly hated them. And today, we are going to reveal the top 6 actors Clint Eastwood hated the most. Before we dive into video, please subscribe our channel. Clint Eastwood was not born into fame or power. He came into this world during the Great Depression, a time when people were struggling just to survive. His family moved from town to town, across California, always chasing work, always starting over. He was just a boy, but even then, Clint learned something very important. Life is hard, and nobody gives you anything for free. His father worked at steel factories, while his mother did what she could to keep the family together. They were not poor, but they were never comfortable either. Clint was tall, quiet, and serious. He did not talk much, but he noticed everything. In school, he was not the smartest or the most popular. In fact, many teachers thought he would not become anything special. But Clint did not care. He was already building something inside, something strong and silent. He worked small jobs to support himself: lifeguard, grocery boy, and even a logger. Every job made him tougher. Every long day taught him discipline. And through it all, he kept dreaming of something bigger. Hollywood seemed like a faraway world, full of shiny stars and perfect faces. Clint was not perfect. His jaw was too square, his voice too soft, his walk too slow. But he had something most people did not: grit. When he first stepped into the world of movies, people laughed. They said he was too stiff. Some even said he should give up. But Clint Eastwood did not quit. He remembered all the times life tried to break him, and he used that pain as power. This was the beginning of a man who would become a legend. Not by luck, but by surviving a world that never wanted him to win. Clint Eastwood's journey into acting was not easy. In fact, it was full of rejection, failure, and heartbreak. When he first tried to enter Hollywood, people did not take him seriously. They said he could not act, that he looked too cold, that he moved too slowly. Some casting directors even told him to try something else. But Clint had already faced harder things in life. He was not going to give up now. He started with small roles. Most of them were silent or short. Sometimes his scenes got cut. Other times, his name was not even in the credits. But Clint showed up every day. He watched, he learned, and he stayed quiet. While others talked and bragged, Clint worked harder. He knew that one day his moment would come. Even when he landed a role in the TV show Rawhide, it was not easy. The directors kept correcting him. The crew whispered that he would never make it big. But Clint did something powerful. He listened, and then he proved them wrong. His quiet style, his deep stare, and his calm voice started to catch people's attention. Slowly, he became the man everyone wanted to watch. But behind the scenes, Clint was still fighting. He had no big connections, no famous family, and no one opening doors for him. He built everything himself, with silence, strength, and a strong will. He faced jealousy from other actors and disrespect from directors who thought he was just a good face with no talent. Those early struggles shaped him. They made him cold. They made him sharp. And most of all, they taught him who to trust and who to avoid forever. Some of the people who hurt him back then would later become the same actors he could never forgive. As Clint Eastwood became more famous, his problems also grew. He was no longer just an actor. He became a director, a producer, and a powerful voice in Hollywood. But power comes with a price. Clint started to build a reputation, not just as a legend, but as a man you did not want to mess with. People called him cold, distant, even dangerous. He did not laugh much on set. He did not party with co-stars or play Hollywood games. Clint came to work, did his job, and left. Some actors said he was hard to talk to. Others said he never smiled. But Clint was not there to make friends. He was there to make history. He also faced many controversies. His strong political views made headlines. Some people praised him for speaking his mind. Others said he was too old-fashioned, too strict, too serious. He did not care. He said what he believed, and if people did not like it, that was their problem. Clint also had trouble with actors who questioned his directing. He hated being told what to do. On set, he expected respect, silence, and hard work. If someone disrespected him, even once, Clint remembered, he forgave very little. That is why so many of his old grudges lasted for years. Some say he was bitter. Others say he was just a man shaped by pain, betrayal, and struggle. Whatever the truth is, Clint Eastwood earned his reputation the hard way. Behind his quiet eyes was a memory that never forgot the people who crossed him. And some of those people were famous actors, who would later find themselves on his secret list. The list of people Clint Eastwood hated the most. Now we talk about 6 actors Clint Eastwood disliked the most. Number 1, Tom Hanks. The man Hollywood calls America's sweetheart. Loved by millions, praised for his kindness, and respected for his craft. But behind the cameras, Clint Eastwood saw something else. To Clint, Tom Hanks was not just polished. He was too polished, too careful, too controlled, too perfect. And Clint never trusted anything that looked too perfect. Their tension started quietly. On the surface, everything seemed fine. They even worked together on Sully, a film where Clint directed and Tom starred. But insiders later revealed that the mood on set was tense. Clint believed in quick, no-nonsense direction. He wanted raw emotion, real pain. Tom, on the other hand, often needed multiple takes, detailed rehearsals, and long talks. Clint had no patience for that. Clint once reportedly said, "He is not real. He is playing nice." That one line shows everything. Clint hated fake smiles, even if they were charming. He believed Tom Hanks was playing a character, even off-screen. To Clint, Tom was too concerned with his image, too focused on pleasing the media, too political. And Clint, being a lone wolf, despised that world. After Sully, they never worked together again. Clint never mentioned Tom's name in interviews. But when asked about actors he respected, he never included him. That silence said everything. Some people say it was jealousy. Others believe it was about values. Clint respected men who were rough, flawed, and brutally honest. And Tom Hanks, in Clint's eyes, was a walking PR machine. Kind on the outside, strategic on the inside. In the end, Clint did not scream, did not fight. He just cut people off quietly. And Tom Hanks became one of those names, frozen in Eastwood's memory as someone he could never respect. Number 2, Spike Lee. The clash between Clint Eastwood and Spike Lee was not a quiet one. It was public, loud, and full of fire. It all started when Spike Lee criticized Clint's war films, Flags of Our Fathers and Letters from Iwo Jima. Spike said Clint failed to show black soldiers and called him out in front of the world. But Clint Eastwood does not take kindly to being called out, especially not like that. Clint responded like only Clint can, calm on the outside, but sharp as a knife. He said, "A guy like that should shut his face." That one sentence lit up headlines, but it also showed the truth. Clint had zero patience for people who, in his eyes, disrespected his work without understanding it. To Clint, Spike's comments were not just criticism, they were personal. He had spent months directing those films with deep care. He wanted to show the horror, the fear, and the humanity of war. But Spike saw a different problem, representation. And instead of a private conversation, he made it public. That moment drew a line between them. From that day, Clint Eastwood saw Spike Lee not as a fellow artist, but as a loud critic who crossed a line. Clint believed in silence, respect, and handling problems like men. Spike, on the other hand, believed in raising his voice for justice. Two strong minds, with completely different rules. They never worked together. They never even sat at the same table again. And when Clint's name was brought up in Spike's interviews, his tone always held a trace of challenge. Clint Eastwood doesn't fight with fists. He fights with silence. And after that clash, Spike Lee became someone he erased from his world. Permanently. Number 3. Leonardo DiCaprio. Leonardo DiCaprio is one of the most talented actors of his generation. Loved by fans, praised by critics, and finally, an Oscar winner. But in Clint Eastwood's world, none of that matters if you break your word. That's exactly what Leo did, and Clint never forgot. Years ago, Clint was working on a major film project. He had Leonardo DiCaprio in mind for the lead role. The two met, talked, and shook hands. Clint believed it was a done deal. He trusted Leo. He was ready to build the film around him. But just weeks before production was set to begin, Leo backed out. No warning, no long conversation, just a polite message through his agent. Leo won't be able to commit. To most directors, it would have been disappointing. But to Clint Eastwood, it was personal. He had spent years fighting his way through Hollywood, proving himself, staying loyal, keeping his promises. To him, Leo's move was not just unprofessional, it was disrespect. Clint reportedly said, "He thinks he's too big to answer a phone call." That one line showed the wound beneath the silence. Clint believed in honor, in men who kept their word, no matter how busy or famous they were. He did not care about Leo's fame or talent. What mattered to him was trust, and Leo had broken it. They never worked together again. And Clint, who rarely names names, made sure people knew that DiCaprio was not someone he would call again. In Clint's eyes, Leo had walked away from more than a film. He had walked away from respect, and once you walk out on Clint Eastwood, you do not get to walk back in. Number 4. Michael J. Fox is known for his charm, wit, and the boyish energy that made Back to the Future a global hit. People loved him. He made the world laugh, even while quietly battling Parkinson's disease with unmatched bravery. But Clint Eastwood, he saw something else, something that didn't sit right with him. It happened during a Hollywood event in the 1990s. Clint and Michael were both guests on a panel. While Clint spoke with his usual calm, serious tone, Michael cracked jokes, made sarcastic comments, and kept interrupting with what many called light humor. The crowd laughed, but Clint didn't, not even once. Later, when someone asked Clint about the event, he simply said, "I do not like that guy." That one sentence became the talk of the room. Why so cold? Why such a strong reaction? But those who knew Clint understood. He believed in respect, especially in public. And Michael, in Clint's eyes, had crossed a line. Clint was a man of discipline, silence, and control. Michael was the opposite. Energetic, emotional, and expressive. Their personalities clashed like fire and ice. Clint didn't care if Michael was funny. He cared if he was respectful. And once that boundary was broken, there was no fixing it. The two never worked together. In fact, their paths rarely crossed again. But whenever Michael's name came up, in Clint's circles, the room grew quiet. Clint had placed him on that invisible list, the one filled with people he never forgive, no matter how beloved they were by the world. Because in Clint Eastwood's code, public mockery, even in the form of a joke, was still a shot fired, and Michael J. Fox had fired it with a smile. Number 5. Gene Hackman is one of the finest actors Hollywood has ever seen. Strong, intense, and completely unafraid to speak his mind. That sounds a lot like Clint Eastwood, and maybe that's why their time together felt more like a war zone than a movie set. The two worked together on the Oscar-winning film Unforgiven, but behind the camera, things were far from peaceful. Clint was the director. Gene was the lead actor. From day one, there was tension. Clint's style was quiet, smooth, and fast. He believed in doing 1 or 2 takes and moving on. Gene, on the other hand, wanted to dig deep, question the script, and take his time. He would ask, "Can we try it differently?" Or, "Are you sure this works?" And to Clint, that felt like a challenge, a direct attack on his authority. Clint didn't yell. He never raised his voice. But those around them said the silence between takes was heavy. You could feel the anger, even when no one said a word. Gene Hackman was not trying to be disrespectful. He was just being himself. But with Clint Eastwood, being yourself came with rules. And rule number 1 was, don't question the boss. After Unforgiven, Clint never cast Gene in anything again. No calls, no offers, no praise in interviews. The movie won awards, but their relationship did not survive. Some say it was a classic case of too much pride in one room. Others say Clint saw Gene as someone who didn't know when to stay quiet. Either way, the damage was done. In Clint's world, there is room for only one leader. And on that set, Gene Hackman had made the mistake of standing on the wrong side of that line. Number 6. Richard Burton was a legend of another kind, intense, magnetic, and wildly unpredictable. His voice could shake a theater. His presence lit up the screen, but off-screen, he was chaos wrapped in charm. And for Clint Eastwood, chaos was the one thing he never allowed in his world. Their paths crossed briefly in Hollywood circles. Both were giants in their own way. But Clint avoided Burton like a man avoids a burning match near gunpowder. The reason? Clint hated recklessness. And Richard Burton lived in it. Burton was famous for his drinking, his affairs, his explosive temper, and his dramatic lifestyle. He was brilliant, no one doubted that. But he was also known to walk onto sets drunk, forget lines, and fight with directors. Clint Eastwood believed in discipline, silence, and control. To him, Richard was the complete opposite: dangerous, loud, and unpredictable. One story that made the rounds in old Hollywood told of Clint refusing to even consider Burton for a role. When asked why, he simply replied, "I do not work with fire that does not know it's burning." That line said everything. Clint did not hate Richard for his talent. He hated him for wasting it. To Clint, being a great actor wasn't enough. You had to show up on time, know your lines, respect the crew, and keep your private life in check. Burton, in Clint's view, broke every one of those rules. Even after Burton passed away, Clint never softened. When asked about him, he gave short, cold answers. No warmth, no praise. Because for Clint Eastwood, legacy wasn't about awards or fame. It was about honor. And Richard Burton, no matter how great, had lived a life too wild to ever earn Clint's quiet, guarded respect. Clint Eastwood's story is not just about fame. It's about survival, silence, and scars. He loved hard, worked harder, and never forgot those who crossed him. In a world full of fake smiles and empty words, Clint stood alone, unshaken, unforgiving. These 6 actors may be loved by the world, but in Clint's heart, they left wounds that never healed. Because for him, respect was not given, it was earned. And once broken, it was gone forever. In the end, Clint Eastwood did not just make movies. He lived by a code, and that code came with a price.